So everybody, Xilicks here, and welcome to week 5 of the MLBA. Today we are facing off against Ultra Player and the New York Metagross. They have a very interesting team because they have an unreleased mon, Zeraora, which was allowed. I believe I'm saying that properly. This thing is, for those of you who don't know, it's very fast. I believe it is 425 or 423. One of those speed ranges, incredibly fast, and it hits very hard. It also has a signature move, Plasma Fists, which does quite a lot of damage, electric typing. So the prepping for that mon was interesting because obviously, you know, I've never faced it before or used it. But then for the rest of his team, he had what you see on his side of the screen is pretty much what I imagined to be brought. The only thing that I thought may have been changed was either Alolan Marowak for Umbreon or potentially the Golisopod for Umbreon. Just because I thought Umbreon was kind of good against some of my mons like Crocodile and Zygarde, but then obviously it's not very great against things like Lopunny and Emboar, which is why I brought both Lopunny and Emboar. Just because, like, really looking at his team, a setup Lopunny can sweep, a setup Zygarde can sweep, a Crocodile can wall break, and Emboar can also wall break. So I decided to go very offensive this matchup, bringing 4 of my most offensive mons and only 2 walls, because I do believe that Amoonguss can take pretty much everything on 1v1 except for the Alolan Marowak, which is why I do have the Gastrodon. And Gastrodon also helps with pivoting on, you know, things like the Latias. So looking at what I have a max defensive Gastrodon with the Clear Smog, Scald, Earth Power, and Recover. Then I have Rocky Helmet Amoonguss with kind of a mixed spread, leaning a little bit more towards special defense to be able to take on things like the Nidoqueen and the Florges and whatnot. Then I have Lopunny. This Lopunny set is very interesting. I'm running Agility so I can outpace the Zeraora, Power Up Punch so I can try to sweep, and then just Drain Punch and return. Again, the reason I'm running Drain Punch over High Jump Kick is because I didn't want there to be a Protect Florges or a Protect Umbreon, more so the Protect Umbreon, because I really don't like dealing with Protect, and I never want to have to lose a game because I click HJK on a turn that they Protect. Next up, I have Crocodile. I believe I'm Scarf Adamant because I was able to outpace the Zeraora, or maybe the Nidoqueen. I don't remember which one, but one of them I could pace if I was Adamant with the Choice Scarf. I do have Superpower for the Umbreon, and then just standard Earthquake, Knockoff, and I believe Stone Edge to hit things like Golisopod. Then I have Zygarde 10% with the Steelinium Z for the Florges. Iron Tail is being powered by the Steelinium Z. And then I have Outrage, 1000 Arrows, and Dragon Dance. And then finally I have a max HP, or not max HP, slightly less than max HP, but very bulky Emboar with leftovers, max attack Adamant, and then a little bit of speed to be able to outpace some of his slower mons. So really, whenever I saw his team, I did not see the Umbreon, which was kind of nice because it opens up the doors a little bit more for things like Zygarde and Crocodile, while also making Emboar a bit more expendable, which is good for me because, you know, I can just kind of bring it in and do damage. So let's start the battle. Whenever I saw his team, I figured my best lead would be Amoonguss. The reason for this is because if he did lead Golisopod to try to set up spikes, or maybe just go for first impression against one of my offensive mons, then it would pair well against that. If he tried to lead with the Nidoqueen to set up hazards, it would do well against that as well. The only bad thing here would have been if he led with the Latias or the Alolan Marowak, neither of which I expected in the lead. Although an Alolan Marowak lead with Stealth Rocks could have been interesting. But no, he does lead the Golisopod and knocks off my Rocky Helmet. This does kind of suck because it limits the amount that I can switch into Zeraora, because I do like being able to switch into Zeraora and do the contact damage with the Rocky Helmet. Here I do predict him to go into the Latias, and I go straight into my Crocodile. He Mega Evolves, and I knock off. That knockoff does not do anything, and neither does that Energy Ball. So this reveals to me that this Latias is very defensive. That's a problem. All of my offense this week is physically defensive. So this defensive Latias is able to also have super effective coverage for every single one of my mons on my team. So I'm actually worried about this. So I actually have to bluff here. I go into the Amoonguss. and he goes for recover, which is fine. I was expecting to take a psychic attack anyways, and now I go into Emboar. I knew this psychic attack was coming, but what I have to do here is I have to go for the sucker punch to get chip, and then go into my Lopunny. Now the reason for doing this is I'm trying to bluff the fact that I could fake out and knock this thing out, or something. Like, I was running out of options. So I make a very risky play going for the power-up punch. Now I knew that the had the Latias stayed in and clicked the psychic attack, I would have survived. I would have gotten off the power-up punch damage, and then I think the return was a roll from there with one power-up punch. So either way, this play couldn't have gone terrible unless the Latias crit me. Would have been the worst case scenario. So he does go into the sleeping Golisopod. Now this gives me a chance to get the +2 attack, and then again a chance to set up the agility, because I know even if he does wake up here, which he did wake up, I believe he did have a chance to be asleep for one more turn, so he got a little bit lucky. Or was that the first turn? I think, yeah, that was the first turn he was fast asleep. So he woke up, he was asleep one turn and then woke up the next turn. So normally I think he would have been asleep for one more turn, so I guess he did get a little bit lucky. I'm not sure how sleep works in this generation to be 100% positive on that, but either way, what would have happened here is he did not wake up, then I probably win the game, because nothing can really beat me when I'm set up like this. And I would have been able to, if he was asleep right here, he would not have gotten the brick break damage off, and then I would emergency exit him. He would be able to come back in later, or I could have knocked him out here. It's a damage roll. I would have either knocked him out here, or he would have come back in later to first impression, which wouldn't do that much to me if I was at full HP still. So now he does get the damage off, but he does decide to switch out, sacking the Alolan Marowak. Now with the Alolan Marowak dead, this means two things. The first thing is Amoonguss is a bit more safe to go into. The second thing is Gastrodon is kind of expendable at this point, so I can use it to try to get Scald Burns on things to wear things down. So anyways, the Nidoqueen is going to come out. This actually was I believe he was out of range from +2 Adamant, because I think if he's Impish, max HP, max defense, or sorry, not Impish, it would have been Bold, max HP, max defense, there is a decent chance that he lives. I'm pretty sure it's like totally in his favor. If he's not max defense, it was a damage roll. So because there's 9% left, it leads me to believe that he was max defense with the defense increasing nature, which is fine because I am able to live a earth power. But because I'm not able to knock this thing out, and because the Golisopod woke up a little bit early, I'm not able to stay in here. I don't have the quick attack, but I think first impression goes first anyways. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure first impression goes first always. So I switch out here because I'm thinking, well, Lopunny outspeeds the Latias, and because that thing has proven itself to be a threat, I want to keep it around in the event that I may need to get some chip damage late in the battle. And I saw that he switched out on it earlier, which means that he could be afraid of it, but now that he's seen more of my set, he might not be. Either way, I go into my Gastrodon on the first impression, which does absolutely nothing. And here I just go for a Scald, trying to burn what I believe to be incoming Latias. But he stays in with Golisopod. I get the burn. This activates his first impression because of not the first impression, sorry, the emergency exit because of the burn. He gets the Citrus Berry, which is fine. I don't really mind. But now that that thing is burned, Zygarde can set up on it. And this is huge because if he ever brings it in again, Zygarde can set up. Alternatively, if I didn't get the burn, I could have tried to put something to sleep with Amoonguss and then set up with Zygarde. But the way it stands now, Zygarde has a chance to set up if I can ever bait that Golisopod back in. I just need it to come back in at some point. So I'm thinking, well, maybe he'll bring it in on a Lopunny to try to get priority off on it. So now I'm just going to sack this Gastrodon because, as I mentioned before, it doesn't really have much of a use. The Latias has a way of knocking out with Energy Ball. The Florges and the Gastrodon kind of just sit in front of each other, and I have a Amoonguss for Florges anyways, so I allow Gastrodon to go down here, which is totally fine. I go Crocodile. Now I considered Earthquaking here, but he knows I can't Earthquake because of that Latias. Because if I click Earthquake, he goes Latias, something's dead. Nothing can take 2 hits from the Latias, so something would die if I clicked Earthquake. He knows that. Now, I could have been very bold and clicked the Earthquake anyways, but it's a good thing I didn't, and you'll see why. I do go for the knockoff, just because I just wanted to play it safe. I had a game plan in mind. The game plan set up with Zygarde if I get that thing in. So now I'm thinking, well, I'm just going to let Crocodile die, because if he knocks out Crocodile here, I can go right into my Zygarde, knock it out with the Cork Steel Crash, because after that knockoff damage, he was in range. So as long as he didn't Synthesis right away, I could have knocked it out. And then, you know, maybe I could have set up with it, or maybe I could have sacked Lopunny and then set up, who knows. So I was thinking, all right, whatever, I'll sack this thing. But then he sets up a substitute, and now I'm kind of like, okay, I should preserve, because I don't know what he's going to do. He's probably going to start setting up Calm Minds, so I just go Amoonguss. Amoonguss does not have Clear Smog. I have Spore, Giga, Synthesis, and Sludge Bomb. Now, Sludge Bomb is able to break the sub with 2, but not if he gets more special defense increases. So now, since I'm slower, I'm kind of in the back foot, because he can just continue to set up sub, heal up, and then go for Synthesis and Calm Mind. So I can't poison him when he's behind the sub. So now I go into the Crocodile knowing he's going to sub again. I go for the Earthquake to break the sub, and I know he's going to knock me out here. It's totally fine. And then I bring in the Zygarde. I go for the Cork Steel Crash, which has a 100% chance of knocking out here. Thankfully, he did not switch, because that would have kind of been meh if I didn't get that off. But I'm pretty sure nothing on his team would have taken the Cork Steel Crash plus another attack. Maybe the Zeraora comes in on the Cork Steel Crash and then is able to revenge, but maybe he wasn't predicting the Cork Steel Crash, not entirely sure. So in comes this Golisopod, and in my opinion, this is a big misplay. Now maybe he doesn't know it's a misplay, maybe he didn't want to bring in the Latias because it dies to an Outrage. So in my opinion, he should have brought in the Zeraora. I don't know Zeraora's coverage off the top of my head right now. Maybe he doesn't have a way to knock me out, and he would just went down to 1,000 arrows. But as I mentioned, this thing is burned. I can set up on it. So here comes the Dragon Dance. I believe I only need 1 to kill everything at the range it's at. I might go for 2 though. Yeah, okay, so the reason I went for 2 here is because I wanted a bit more of the burn damage on the Golisopod, and he does allow me to take out the Golisopod. I think the play here was sacking Latias, then going back into the Golisopod and clicking First Impression. Not entirely sure, but I go for the Outrage. I knock out both the Golisopod and the Zeraora, and then I get the Confusion on the second turn, which is unfortunate, but fortunately I do break out of the Confusion and knock out the Latias, giving me a 3-0 win. This game, whenever that Florges started to set up, I was worried that I might lose, but luckily I did do something about it before it got out of control, and really just, I don't know, I think this game went really well for me. I obviously got fortunate by burning the Golisopod. That definitely helped. However, had I not burned the Golisopod, I still would have been able to go into Zygarde. I could have gotten off 1 Dragon Dance, and I think it would have been a damage roll to knock him out, because he would have been at somewhere near 50% from the skull damage. Because keep in mind, he did have the Citrus Berry pop, and he got ejected. So I don't know what would have happened if the skull burn didn't happen. Obviously, I'm not a psychic, and I'm not going to sit here and try to Theoremon. But yeah, the skull burn happened, and I took advantage of it on a later turn, set up the Zygarde, and swept the rest of his team. Other than that, I'm pretty happy with the match, because I don't know, I feel like I went into it with a pretty solid game plan, and I really thought about my turns. Because if anyone who's watching the video now was there alive during the battle, some of the turns definitely took a while to happen, and that's because I told myself I just gotta sit there and think about my plays. Because if I wasn't thinking about my plays, I probably would have lost whenever the Florges started to set up. I probably would have lost whenever the Latias was in. I really needed to think about my plays and execute my strategy, and that's what happened. Luckily, he did make a series of plays that allowed me to set up. Obviously, switching out on the Lopunny, I think, was a little bit of a misplay, but I don't know if he would be able to predict that. So yeah, I'm going to stop rambling. GG to Ultra Player, and I will see you guys next time. Kidding Spy.